Yeah, I think we're well within our right to be hyped. Look at that, guys. We found happiness.
We're getting there.
I'm
And
happy.
we're only going to get more
I'm
hyped.
happy.
Only get
I'm
more hyped
happy.
as we go throughout this show.
This is good.
He's everything we want Najee Harris to be.
Oh, and you brought us right back down. Thank you, Jagger. Week 2 is in the books. We're moving on to week 3, and we're recording this on Tuesday, September 19th. And man, last night was a little depressing with the Nick Chubb news. Nick Chubb likely, I don't want to even want to say likely. It just seems he will be out for the season. Horrific injury. You hate to see that happen. Prayers up for Nick Chubb and hoping the best for him. But we are going to turn this in a different direction. Okay. We had our moment of silence. We had a tough night last night, some pretty bad football. Let's talk about what has us excited about this fantasy football season. We're going into week 3. We're starting to see a bit of a sample size for some of these players. So last week we did our panic meter of the offenses and the players that were just had us the most panicked and the most overreactionary. This week we are hyped. We're doing the hype meter. We have our special guest, Jagger May, on with us today. And you can find him on the Sunday morning live start sit show here on Football Guys. And he does a lot of awesome behind the scenes work for us. And we're going to hop in to tier number 4 here, where this is incredible. We've got our first ever player to be on both the Panic and the Hype show here in back-to-back weeks. DeAndre Swift, welcome to the Hype meter. He's in tier 4 here, running back 74 in week 1, running back 4 in week 2. Dave, talk to me about DeAndre Swift.
Well, kind of funny that he was on our Panic show. Now he's on our Hype show. I write my weekly 3 up, 3 down article. After week 1, he was trending down. In this week's article, he is trending up. So, we don't want to be too overreactive, but this is a guy who we know has a ton of talent. Like DeAndre Swift, really good. He's got the draft capital. He's got the college production. He's got the measurables. He's got the speed scores. He's got all the things we want. And now we finally see the opportunity there. But just to let the audience know, this tier 4 that we're talking about, this is our... what do we call this? Like our pump the brakes hype meter. Like this is the lowest tier of hype that we have. So I'm not ready to just dunk my head in the pitcher of Kool-Aid yet. I mean, we've fallen for this before with DeAndre Swift, where we see these weeks where he looks really, really good. But I want to see how the workload shakes out once Kenneth Gainwell is back in the mix. I mean, it's possible they just gave him a huge load on Thursday night because it was coming off a short week and he had the freshest legs. So I am cautiously optimistic for now. If he's still available in your league for whatever reason, go ahead and dump a bunch of fab on him because we know he's got the makings to be a really good running back, but he's not a guy that I'm ready to just like say is a start and, plug and play top 10 running back quite yet.
All right. So Jagger, I know I'm a bit of a wet blanket, but you are the one that nominated DeAndre Swift for the hype meter this week, right? There's got to be some real excitement here. You're highest on DeAndre Swift out of all of us. Give the pitch for why the people should be hyped about DeAndre Swift.
Usually when it comes to my process, it's all about betting on talent. And I don't like, again, Nick Sirianni could be like these Arthur Smiths, these Matt Canadas who just hate properly using players, but he clearly looked like the best back and they gave him that workhorse, that workhorse workload. And I just loved what I saw. He's the best in the open field. He made guys miss in the backfield. And we clearly saw this offense take a step back with Shane Steichen. And now I think with DeAndre Swift, at least for me, they have something they can lean on and then hope that the passing game steps forward like it kind of did when we saw Jalen Hurts have a huge season last year. I know I'm a little I'm a little excited, probably prematurely, but the way that, like, especially after last night, the state of the running back position looks, I think that DeAndre Swift is a guy that you probably have to start on most teams. So.
Yeah, I think you're plugging him in for now, and I'm not trying to be a wet blanket by any means, Jagger. I think that DeAndre Swift, I mean, this is kind of like the culmination of everything we've wanted to see. We never really saw it in Detroit, but we know he's got the talent. We know he's on an offense that likes to run the ball. He's behind a great offensive line now, so I'm completely buying what you're selling. Maybe it's just because I've been scorned for back-to-back-to-back years that I'm a little bit trepidatious here. I do like DeAndre Swift, and I think it could happen. I just want to see how the workload looks when Gainwell is back in the mix before I'm ready to completely buy in.
Completely fair.
I'm looking at the schedule here, and I think we're just going to see more of what we've always seen with DeAndre Swift. He basically every year of his career has finished as a running back 2 or better. And I think we could see that this year. I think the problem is that you never know when to start him because he's going to give you, the 27-point blow up and then a 3-point game. And I think that that's what we see here. I'm looking at the schedule right now. Tampa Bay next week. That's going to be a tough run defense. Washington, tough run defense. Los Angeles Rams, a bit more open. Jets, tough run defense. Miami, very open. Washington, tough again. Dallas, tough again. Bye week. And the schedule is not very favorable for the Eagles in general, but there are going to be some of those big blow up games, and you could have more of these 27-point outbursts for DeAndre Swift. It's just going to be a matter of figuring out when. Now, guys, let's take a look at the other pairing that we have here in tier 4, and it's these rookie tight ends that I think all offseason, it was like the battle of, we're really excited about these rookie tight ends. They're incredibly talented. And then a bunch of people just whispering into your ear, rookie tight ends don't matter in fantasy football. And then now they do. Welcome to 2023. Like, this is a whole new world out here. Sam LaPorta is the tight end 4. Dalton Kincaid is the tight end 11. Jagger May, how hype are you about these rookie tight ends?
As hype as I can be for a tight end. Like, that's why they're in tier 4. But overall,
No,
like,
let's start this again. This is the hype episode, not the being reasonable episode. I need more excitement from you.
Stick to your guns, Jagger. They're tight ends.
Yeah, like to be, I'm super excited about Sam LaPorta. He's been one of my rookie sons that I'm picking up everywhere, and I just want a family portrait of him and another guy that we're going to talk about a little bit later, because he's done everything that I like to see in a tight end. He's earned targets. He clearly looks like a part of the offense. He's not coming in with only like 40% of the snaps. He looks like, honestly, the number 2 target until Jameson Williams comes back, or 2B if you consider DeAndre Swift, Jahmyr Gibbs the number 2 target. So and then on the flip side, you got Dalton Kincaid. Again, someone like Jeff Bell has talked about. I don't think he's actually so much a tight end like Dawson Knox is playing that traditional inline role. He's a guy who's basically playing a slot, and he's going to eat up a lot of targets. And if we're already seeing this usage now, if they follow the trajectory of most rookies, we could only see that increase. So if you're like me, people like Sam LaPorta, Dalton Kincaid, I've taken them as my tight end too. So when you get burned by Kyle Pitts, like I have been the last 2 weeks, I have a backup plan. So with that being considered, I'm pretty reasonable.
Dave, there's a rookie tight end here that we're not talking about, but I know that you have a special place in your heart right now for the Packers offense. Luke Musgrave, does he have a shot at joining these guys, at being one of these, rookie tight ends that can actually produce for fantasy that we can be excited about?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, the thing all of these tight ends have in common is that they're all a part of what are looking like they're going to be pretty good offenses. The Buffalo Bills, Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers. But I think that Jagger kind of nailed it from the jump, just saying, hey, we're excited about these guys as we can be for a tight end. Because you start looking at the points, like LaPorta is the best out of the bunch, 10.1 points. Dalton Kincaid has 8 points. Luke Musgrave has 6.3 points. And 10.8 points, I mean, it's really, or 10.1 points is really nothing to write home about. On a per game basis, that's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, tight end 6. He's in the same tier as Darren Waller, Hayden Hurst, Zach Ertz, Noah Fant. I mean, all of these guys are within 1 point of each other. Let me go through here. Kylen Granson, Logan Thomas, Noah Fant, Zach Ertz, Hayden Hurst, Darren Waller, Sam LaPorta, Evan Ingram. I mean, it's just not that you're getting a huge difference maker at the position. So I feel like, again, if you don't have Travis Kelce, if you don't have Mark Andrews, hopefully Darren Waller could come on later in the season. You're just not getting a real difference maker here. So, again, we're kind of starting off our hype show talking about the guys that we are least hyped about. But, we've seen Kyle Pitts and Evan Ingram and OJ Howard. These guys kind of show flashes early in their career, and then it takes years for them to put it together. So, yeah, I mean, I'm okay plugging these guys into your lineup right now and hoping for the best, but I really think some of these boring veterans, Zach Ertz, Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram, those are guys that I'd probably prefer right now at this point in the season before I can just move on to these rookies.
What is your problem? This is the hype meter show, and you're like, I'm really into these boring old tight ends. What do you, Dave?
I mean, Zach Ertz might be boring, but he's pulling a 29.5% target share and getting 9 targets per game. I mean, like we said yesterday, I don't care if he turns that into 25 scoreless yards a week. That is still better production than you're getting from almost any other tight end.
I think the good thing that we're seeing right now. Yeah, go for it, Jagger.
I was going to say, we're seeing the floor, in my opinion, with at least with Sam LaPorta. He hasn't even got a touchdown yet. So,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
LaPorta's my favorite of the bunch. for sure. I mean, LaPorta is the guy that I think you could plug in confidently right now.
Well, you mentioned that these guys, are hovering around those 10 points per game. 10 points per game. That was Evan Ingram last year as the tight end 5 in PPR scoring. So I know it's not something that moves the needle a whole bunch like the way a Travis Kelce or TJ Hawkinson might do, but in the tight end landscape, I'm very happy with that because of where I drafted Sam LaPorta, because he was a guy that I didn't have to draft in like any of my first, 10, 12 rounds. Like he was the guy that I was probably getting as one of my last draft picks or even off the waiver wire after the draft. So that's what has me hype about it, is that I think we may have found a guy who's going to be not touchdown dependent, but volume dependent in a pass heavy offense. So that's what I like.
All I'll say is Evan Ingram as the tight end 5 was within 1 point per game of the tight end 12. And I mean, this is what we know. Like if you don't have one of those elite, and that's why I think is Jagger said it perfectly from the beginning. Excited as we can be about tight ends, but I don't know if these guys are going to have that 16, 17, 18 point per game ceiling that we get from a guy like Travis Kelce or from a guy like Mark Andrews. So, they're tight ends.
Well, if you've been enjoying this wishy-washy, not so hype episode so far that we sold you on the extreme excitement, go ahead and give this episode a like. Give it a quick thumbs up. Drop a comment down below. Let us know what has you excited going forward in the season, or maybe ask us a question about what you should be excited about going forward here in the NFL season and on your fantasy roster. Also, make sure you are subscribed to the Football Guys channel, because you're going to be getting the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show here 4 times a week. We give you audio on Fridays, and then Sunday morning, we've got the live start sit show every Sunday morning. You got the early show with Joey Wright, Jagger May, Jeff Bell, and then the later show that goes right up to game time with myself, Dave Kluge, and Adam Hutchison, where we are going to break down all of your start sit questions and review all the injuries for you. Now, guys, I want a little more excitement.
We're moving up a tier. We're moving up a tier, so we're going to get a little bit more hyped, all right? We started the hype show with the guys we're least hyped about. Maybe this was just a production error on our part. We're going to get more excited.
Let's take some pre-workout, inject it directly into your veins. I don't care what you got to do, but let's get moving. All right, because here in tier 3, I am looking at Deebo Samuel, who, if there was, 2 years ago, this was the guy that everyone was hyped about. Last year wasn't that great, but this year, Deebo Samuel, he's a wide receiver 14. He's already got 11 receptions on 16 targets. He's being used once again in the rushing game. He's already got a touchdown. Next 2 games, looking pretty good. New York Giants and the Arizona Cardinals. So we could see a lot of Deebo Samuel. Jagger, I'm going to start with you on this one. Deebo Samuel, you don't seem to have the same level of excitement. I'm looking at what you put here. You are least excited about Deebo. What? We are not delivering on our promises here, fellas.
Actually, I will come in hot. I think the 49ers are. I was so wrong on Brock Purdy. You want, to me, for what you paid for Deebo Samuel. Yeah, for what you paid for Deebo Samuel.
Maybe Dave.
You're getting a really good player at cost, and he could be wide receiver 1 from week to week. I still think Ayuk is the guy there to own, but again, it's kind of like we talked about the tight ends. For what you paid, I mean, the upside's there, and you're getting a piece of an offense that's been scoring like crazy. I know a lot of the numbers guys were saying they can't keep up with that pace. But here we are week 2, and I don't see Purdy in this offense slowing down. And like Alfredo, kind of like you said, man, he's getting the rush attempts. He's just getting quality touches, and he's getting touches in an offense that is designed by a mad genius. So to be honest, maybe I'm too low, and I just love DeAndre Swift, because to me the hype's there, and I'm ready to eat it on Brock Purdy and Deebo. So.
Yeah, remember how much heat I got early in the offseason when we did that show with Matt Harmon, and I took Brock Purdy ahead of Kenny Pickett in our startup draft?
Oof.
Not looking too terrible right now. Just saying, Brock Purdy might be the real deal. But yeah, I'm also kind of pumping the brakes. I hate to be a wet blanket on our hype show, but Deebo Samuel, I mean, he had 11 points in week 1, all right? That's kind of what we've seen from Deebo Samuel, all but that one magical year.
That's because Brandon Ayuk had 2 touchdowns, man. It's also an outlier game for the offense.
And how about in week 2 when Brandon Ayuk was injured and played 50% of the snaps and was clearly limited in the rest of the game? So, I mean, if we're expecting Brandon Ayuk to get hurt every week, maybe it'll be wheels up for Deebo Samuel, but he is the 4th option in this offense behind Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and then Deebo Samuel gets the scraps. And if Brandon Ayuk's going to get hurt, cool. Deebo Samuel's going to be good, but we have seen 1 year where they completely missed on Trey Sermon, Elijah Mitchell got hurt, and Deebo Samuel was thrusted into this role where he was their goal line back, their Christian McCaffrey role now at this point. And that year he was elite, giving us almost 20 points per game. Every other year he's been in the league, he's been a boomer bust wide receiver 3. I think that just with how many mouths there are to feed in this offense, with the ascension of Brandon Ayuk and with the addition of Christian McCaffrey, I think we see Deebo just kind of stay in that boomer bust wide receiver 3 role. And I hate to say it because Deebo's a dog. Like, watching him on film, I don't know if there's a player I like watching more in the NFL, but you got to look at the numbers here in fantasy football, and there just isn't enough volume for him to be any more than a boomer bust wide receiver 3.
They're scraps, but these are Thanksgiving Day scraps, Dave. These are Thanksgiving Day scraps. They're like the S
every
tier,
once in a
like
while he gets a turkey leg, yeah.
You see, I still lean the other way. I still lean that Deebo Samuel is the primary wide receiver target here. I understand that there's been a lot of the hype around Brandon Ayuk, and deservedly so. He's a very good player. Brandon Ayuk feels like that guy that's going to be a bit more of the boom bust type. So much of his production in week 1 and even in the past has come off of these touchdowns that he's getting. Deebo Samuel is it continues to be used in a bit more of the creative ways. And especially with a guy like Brock Purdy, if for any reason things start to come crashing down to earth and Brock Purdy is not this quarterback that can light the league on fire, he's going to go for whoever is giving him the easiest targets. And of course, that'll probably end up being George Kittle, and then we're all wrong because that's just how fantasy football works. Let's take a look at another guy that has been really good here to start the season. Are we finally going to be happy? Can we be happy about anything? Can we have nice things? Brian Robinson, running back for the Washington Commanders. He's running back 3 on the season. He's getting a ton of volume, 37 rush attempts, 3 touchdowns in the season. Next 2 weeks, it does get a little bit more challenging with Buffalo and Philly. But Brian Robinson, Dave, I think you and I were both pretty high on Brian Robinson heading into the season. I'm interested. How likely is it that you think he continues this production? Probably not running back 3, but somewhere pretty good in the running back landscape.
All right, now we're starting to get hyped. Now I'm starting to feel it a little bit. Now, all right, let's go Brian Robinson. This is what we wanted to see. And yeah, you and I both like Brian Robinson. And maybe I'm just a little more hyped about Brian Robinson because I have him on a ton of my fantasy rosters. But this is exactly what we wanted to see. And we talked about it yesterday that he is still available in some leagues on waivers. So if your league mates are asleep at the wheel, splash whatever you can to pick up Brian Robinson because he's like the closest thing we're seeing to a workhorse in today's NFL. Commanders have been running a ton of plays. He's 9th in opportunity share. He's top 25 in evaded tackles, route participation, juke rate, and Antonio Gibson just appears to be an afterthought. I don't know how many touches he's going to be getting here.
Thanos. So he's gone.
He's gone, yeah. So Robinson is talented. He's getting a lot of work. What's not to like here? I mean, this is a guy that realistically, like if this workload continues, could sneak in as a back-end RB1 at the end of the year.
Jagger, how are you feeling about Brian Robinson going forward? I know it's hard to get excited about a guy that's not getting a whole lot of targets in the passing game, but with this kind of volume, I mean, he's got to be just a plug-and-play running back every single week, right?
Yeah, I'm hyped. I'm just like Dave. I was talking all offseason about these grinder running backs that a lot of people don't love. The NFL is kind of moving to this committee role, and then even though I expected Gibson to get a lot more work than he's gotten. But again, I expected the high quality touches that Brian Robinson's getting, like in the red zone and lots of touchdowns, at least getting 15 touches a game. And I didn't expect this Washington offense to be as good as it has been, even with the addition to Eric Bieniemy. So Sam Howell is the guy that we think it is. If Eric Bieniemy is getting this rolling, and then again, like Alfredo said, Gibson's been Thanos. All my expectations have been smashed. So to me, he's a weekly starter. And even though we don't love him, we think that he's not as sexy as Antonio Gibson is because he's not as flash. Boy, is he giving us plenty to eat. You want to talk about fantasy points? I crushed it this week because I have a lot of Brian Robinson because he costed you nothing. So.
Yeah, I want to steal some numbers here from Ian Hart. It's over on Twitter where he took a look at Brian Robinson's combined carries and targets in 14 games. And I mean, it's just, there's only 2 games here that are under double digits, but throughout the last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 out of the last 7 games, he's had 20 or more touches on the football. That is ridiculous. There's not a lot of guys in the NFL that are getting that kind of volume. So yeah, I think we're well within our right to be hyped. Look at that, guys. We found happiness.
We're getting there. And we're only going to get more hyped. Only getting more hyped as we go throughout this show.
This is good.
He's
Well,
everything we want Najee Harris to be.
oh, and you brought us right back down. Thank you, Jagger. All right,
He's
guys.
right,
Well,
though. He's right.
if you're looking for some help this week and who to start and sit in your leagues, go check out the Football Guys weekly rankings. They're 100% free. And actually, what you can do is you can link these with your league based on your scoring settings by simply becoming a pro subscriber. It's one of the most affordable subscriptions in all of the fantasy football industry. Go check out footballguys.com to take a look at these rankings. We'll have the link in the description down below. Boys, let's get to tier number 2, where we're not talking about just individual players. We're actually looking at a couple of offenses here. Now, the first one that I want to take a look at is going to be this Rams offense. Everything has gone right. Literally everything. Matt Stafford has been a god. Puka Nacua is already a Hall of Famer. Kyren Williams is out here as the running back 2 in fantasy. Like, what is going on? And they don't even have Cooper Kupp. Cam Akers is basically off the team. What is going on? Jagger, give me some semblance of sanity here, because you're the one that's the least excited about this Rams offense. So what I'm going to do is let's start with the bad news. Let's eat our vegetables first, and then Dave will finish with you because I know you're in love with the Rams offense.
Yeah, and like I kind of told you guys pre-show, it's not I like half of the Rams offense. Like Matt Stafford, I will eat it. He's not ready to retire. He looks good. He quite literally has a spine. Puka Nacua, he's Cooper Cup 2.0. Like Puka and the Cooper Cup, Pook Nukem, whatever you want to call
Let's
him.
go.
I'm all
It's
in.
catching on. It's catching on, Alfredo.
No, it's not.
Tutu Atwell is the one where I'm pumping my brakes, because to me he's the odd man out when Cooper Kupp comes back. Because like when Cooper Kupp comes back, regardless if he's at the level of what we expect, he's gonna be getting targets. He's gonna earn them, and I expect this to fit into more of what we saw in like the first year of the Robert Woods Cooper Kupp both eating. Not last year Robert Woods, where you just saw a ghost out there. So I expect him to be the odd man out. And then Kyren Williams, this is the big break pumper for me, is that he's not good. He's just being force fed. So like that's what I'm worried at. So again, I'm half hyped. I'm hyped for half this offense.
So I think the reason I'm so hyped about the Rams is kind of the storyline and the narrative behind it. Like, yeah, there's some other offenses that are better than the Rams, but we kind of expected them to be better. 10, 11, 12 days ago, whatever, before the season kicked off, people were saying the Rams were going to be tanking for Caleb Williams, saying that they were going to be lucky to win 2 games. The way that people were talking about the Rams, I thought Matthew Stafford was going to take his first drop back, go to throw the ball, and his arm was just going to fall off. And then I thought that Cam Akers was going to get hit in the backfield and just explode into a cloud of dust. Like, people completely wrote this team off for dead, and now they are a very high-flying offense. Stafford's on pace for 671 pass attempts. I mean, just throwing the ball all over the place. We've already talked about Puka Nacua a ton, so I'm not going to lean in on him. Tutu Atwell, though, is 7th overall in receiving yards. I mean, there's just so much to go around in this offense. Still have Cooper Kupp coming back at some point, which is just going to elevate this offense even further. I've talked about it a bunch, but, Stafford was a Super Bowl winner and Fantasy's QB5 just 2 years ago, and there's no reason to think that we can't see that same type of offensive output this year. And then I just want to reiterate what Jagger said here about Kyren Williams, because I completely agree. The workload's been nice, but I don't think he's going to be seeing 10 targets every single week. He's definitely worth a waiver pickup. You can ride the hot hand for now, but I absolutely have him pegged as a potential sell high. Whether they bring in somebody else or maybe Ronnie Rivers or something, I don't know. I'm just not sold on Kyren Williams.
That's a made-up name.
Ronnie Rivers is a real man, and he is going to start getting work at some point. But Kyren Williams, I talk about rushing yards over expectation all the time. It's a real nerdy stat, but it does, indicate good runners. Kyren Williams was dead last in the league last week in rushing yards over expectation per attempt. I mean, he left like 45 rushing yards on the field. So I don't know if he's the long-term option. And this could also be a thing. Remember last year, like Cam Akers was in the doghouse. They said they were going to trade him. He was a healthy scratch. And then he came back and saw like 22 carries a game for the rest of the season. So maybe this is just Sean McVay flexing again, doing what he can to get Cam Akers' head right. I'm not totally sold on Kyren Williams, but the rest of the Rams offense, why not?
Yeah, I'm just going to continue to echo the sentiments. That passing offense looks fantastic. And guys, I don't think that Puka is Cooper Cup 2.0 or Puka Nacua or whatever you guys called him. I think that he is the new and improved Bobby Trees. He's the new
Yeah.
Robert Woods. The way that they're using him underneath and the way that they're getting him to actually take carries and snaps out of the backfield. And it's really exciting to see what they can do. And we've seen that this Rams offense can actually work with two wide receivers. It's not just all the Cooper Cup show. And that's actually when they tend to work best, is when it's not just Cooper Cup having to do every single thing. As for the Kyren Williams stuff, like, I'm old enough to remember when Darrell Henderson was a thing. And when Darrell Henderson was going to be the guy who was getting
like
the volume.
yards per game over a stretch.
Yeah. And like, oh, he's not very good, but he's going to get the volume. It's like, eventually players that are not very good just stop getting volume because they're not producing. It's helpful to have the volume, but those players actually need to be doing something with it. Now, let's get to another offense where everyone is doing something with this offense and they're looking great. Miami Dolphins are 2-0. I'm a bit hype. I gotta say, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not even gonna try to hide it. A little unprofessional. I don't care. But Miami Dolphins are 2-0. Tua Tagovailoa has looked very good. I think none of the concerns going into the season about him were about his skill. It was more so about the health and how is he going to hold up. As of now, he's been taking hits. He's been going to the ground. And Dave, as you like to call it, his judo has been really, really helpful for it. We know it's judo. And we also know that he took jujitsu, not judo or judo. But this team has looked really good. Tyreek Hill pops off in week 1. In week 2, Raheem Mostert pops off. Is this one of those things where we're actually we don't know who's going to be good, but I'm fine rostering and starting everyone from this offense? Jagger, how do you feel about this Dolphins offense?
Yeah, this is you get every piece that you can. You're trying to get Devin Ashane. I picked up Salvon Ahmed the other day because I'm like, if something happens, he could have
Might
a
as well.
game. Yeah, you might as well. Like, you want every piece. Durham Smythe should be rostered. He might have a game.
That's the one that has me reeling, is that the tight end landscape has gotten so bad and Durham Smythe is getting like 100% of the snaps. And we're all just like, I don't know. We kind of might want to start Durham Smythe. Like, that tells me how good this offense is that we're like, let's do it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been a known Tua hater. I've been very anti Tuanon. But he looks good, man. Like Fredo, Fredo, I'll freaking secede to you because the Patriots game, that was a big test for me. Playing against Bill Belichick, who I think consistently puts out elite defenses. Tua looks like an MVP. And then I try to think about the players, especially in redraft, that I thought were discounts this year. Jaylen Waddle probably should have went first round in a lot more places than he did. And you were getting him, let's say if you went CMC early, you were able to get Jaylen Waddle as your second pick. You are feasting right now. And again, Tua, he was cheap. He was back in wide QB1, and you're probably feasting right now because of this Miami Dolphins. Mike McDaniel, he's a boy genius. If you don't have any Miami Dolphins, I feel bad for you. I'm one of those people that doesn't have enough. So,
Dave, what about you?
I had been critical of Tua in the past, like Jagger here, and I am completely ready to eat my words. I mean, he is dealing out there. He looks so good. I had some concerns about the arm strength, but it doesn't seem like it's really a problem now. I mean, we talked about it. We kind of joked around a couple of weeks ago that Tua got thick, and I think he put on some weight in that shoulder because he's letting it fly deep this year and looking pretty good doing so.
Thicker than a bowl of oatmeal, Dave.
Whatever, man. I mean,
I'm allowed to say
looks
that.
good.
Sorry, Joe.
You're allowed to say that. But yeah, I mean, just this Dolphins offense as a whole. I was looking today, they have 925 total yards of offense. That's over 100 more than the next closest. They're averaging 7.1 yards per play, a full yard more than the next closest. The only reason they aren't in tier 1 for me is because we kind of expected this. And that's why I like the Rams a little bit more, because they kind of were the dark horse that came out of nowhere. We knew that Miami Dolphins were going to be a good, funneled offense through their best playmakers. I don't know if we expected them to be this good. The only reason they aren't tier 1 for me is because we had kind of seen this coming.
Yeah, I'll say this. One of the players that you mentioned there, Jagger, was Jaylen Waddle. I've got him as a buy low guy right now because I think he has been the one that's been quietly just kind of ho-hum here through the first 2 weeks. He hasn't really had that breakout performance. And right now he's a wide receiver 37 in fantasy. This is a guy who we have seen be the wide receiver 13 as a rookie, wide receiver 8 last year. Unless you think he's not going to be a wide receiver 2, you should be going out and trying to buy Jaylen Waddle because, and I think you also have a little bit of that concussion protocol discount right now. People might be scared. You had that weird Tyreek Hill blow up game in week 1 and then the Patriots game in week 2. And like you said, those games are always kind of like a weird knockout, drag out fight where it's just, it kind of turns into old smash mouth football, but the Dolphins still had some fun. So yeah, I'm really excited about the Dolphins, and that's why I have them here in tier 2 as well. Needless to say, of course, I'm excited about the Dolphins. Now, before we get to tier 1 and get to the players and teams that we are most hype about, I want to let you guys know about Sleeper. It is the fastest organically growing fantasy football app in the world with over 5 million active users. And now Sleeper has a new feature called Sleeper Picks, where you get to use real money and win real money. And you can do this against your friends, and you can pick before the game, live, and across different sports where you get to select if a player will go over or under a certain stat line. And Sleeper is the only place that's going to give you 100 times the payout. So share it with your friends and compete against them. Head on over to sleeper.com/promo/FBG. We've got the link in the description down below. Start winning some money today. Gentlemen, hype meter is officially full. Tier 1, the most hype, the hypiest. Dave, I want to start with you because we're talking about Jordan Love. We talked about Jordan Love before the season, and I'm not trying to keep patting ourselves in the back here.
Episode 2.
We talked about how episode 2, man. Oh, it was a beautiful thing. We were so young. We've learned so much since then. This is like episode 27. We have learned absolutely nothing. But Jordan Love and the Packers look great. They're 2-0. Jordan Love is the QB2 in fantasy football. He's thrown 6 touchdowns. There's already been some articles and research coming about how this is not sustainable, but this is not an episode for facts and figures. This is an episode for being hyped. So talk to me about why I need to be hyped about Jordan Love.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen so many people say that, like, oh, he padded his stats because of a shovel pass to Jaylen Reed, which, yeah, I mean, it's a little iffy, but Aaron Rodgers used to pad his stats with a lot of plays like that up the gut to Aaron Jones and other people. So
they still count. They still count.
Right. And it's a good offense. I mean, how many times have we seen Patrick Mahomes just like flip the ball to Jerick McKinnon or Travis Kelce and then they do all the work? We aren't discrediting Patrick Mahomes for doing it. Why are we discrediting? All right, I'm not making a comp here, Jordan Love to Patrick Mahomes. But you get what I'm saying, all right? It's a good offense. Everybody. Get him. It's a good offense, and they're going to score points. I'm just not really all that concerned about it. And we're seeing him do this without their best playmaker. Christian Watson hasn't played in week 1 or 2. He's expected to come back in week 3. Just going to elevate that offense as a whole. We got Aaron Jones returning at some point as well. It's hard not to be excited about this Packers offense. I mean, they're going to be good. Jordan Love looks legit. We talked that there's that like very clear-cut top tier of quarterback ones. The guys with the huge rushing upside on the prolific offenses. Jordan Love isn't there yet, but he is in that tier with kind of the back-end QB1s, high-end QB2s, where you're streaming them based on matchups. And a few weeks from now, we might just be plugging Jordan Love in every single week as a QB1. It seems like he's on that trajectory. So, yeah, hard not to be excited about the Packers offense.
By the way, I lied. The Packers are not 2-0. Stupid Falcons won in week 2. I forgot about that. 25-24. Arthur Smith just dashing our dreams. Jagger, I'm actually quite impressed with Jordan Love. He's got 6 touchdowns on 29 completions. Like, what an incredible touchdown rate that he has here. I think based on the opponents going forward, this volume should only increase. So are you as excited as Dave is about this Packers offense and Jordan Love?
I'm incredibly excited. He's a guy where I told everyone, we just don't know what Jordan Love is. We don't know what Jordan Love is because everyone was like, well, if he's good, he would have played. He was behind one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and that's just an objectively crazy thing to say. But it's like you said, since the preseason, every pass or every drive I've seen, he's looked in control, and I love the pace that they're running. I know it's just week 2, but they're running a much faster offense, and we actually get to see this West Coast outside zone that Matt LaFleur was supposed to bring over, and like you, Dave, you kind of say it, they don't have their best playmaker right now with Christian Watson. but we see Dontavian Wicks kind of stepping into that role, and we see what he's doing. And Christian Watson is a much better player, so I expect this to this offense to even improve. And another guy that we kind of hit it on earlier, Luke Musgrave, is just getting his feet wet. He barely played in college, and he's oozing with upside. So I think that this offense only has more room to grow. And again, the Atlanta thing, I'd like to think that's kind of a fluke going forward. I expect Jordan Love to flirt with top 10 numbers, even without that rushing floor. So if you punted quarterback and you took Jordan Love later, or however you got him, it was probably a lot cheaper than what he's gonna pay off for you later. So.
Yeah, in Dynasty, Jordan Love was one of my favorite buys at the end of last season, because we kind of figured this was going to be that roller coaster where he could end up being the starter for the Packers. And look at where he is now. Going into week 3, he's going to have a tough test going up against New Orleans Saints, but then this could be one of those where it might go a little back and forth. I think that'll be the biggest test for him, is the New Orleans Saints there in week 3, but then he's got the Detroit Lions in week 4, the Las Vegas Raiders in week 5. So we could be looking at a lot more scoring for the Packers offense over the next few weeks here. Now, another offense that we were all very excited about going into this season, and I actually think, despite them being in tier 1 here, we have a little bit of dissenting opinions. So I'm going to let Dave start off on this one. I'm surprised he's not wearing a shirt of some sort today with any of these players on it, but let's talk about Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens. Right now, they're 2-0. Things are looking good for the Ravens. Do they really deserve to be in the tier 1 level of hype, Dave?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the only shirt I have is J.K. Dobbins. Pour one out,
You need
hoping
more
he can
shirts.
come back at some point. But I do have the signed Lamar right here, signed Lamar Jackson jersey right behind me. I mean, I love this team. Like, they've kind of become my de facto number 2 team behind Chicago over the years. And week 1 was bumpy. A couple of fumbles for Lamar Jackson didn't look too great. They even came out of the gate slow in week 2, but man, we saw everything start humming in the second half of that game in week 2. Lamar was dealing. He was getting everyone involved, man. Nelson Aguilar catching passes, Devin Duvernay and Odell Beckham stepping up. We saw Mark Andrews just step right back in and retain his role as the team's kind of de facto wide receiver 1. Justice Hill looked great in the passing game. Gus Edwards was the hammer that just kept the offense churning. This is the best offensive system and supporting cast that we have ever seen Lamar have throughout his NFL career. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think we could see Lamar Jackson win an MVP if he can retain the type of efficiency and what we saw in the second half of week 2's game. He looked like an MVP in that game.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what we all wanted to see, right? This Todd Monken offense. We wanted to see more points. We wanted to see them actually passing the ball vertically. And I don't think that we've truly seen the real Ravens offense yet. I think we only got 1 week here of Mark Andrews. You've got a rookie wide receiver who's still getting his feet wet. You've got Odell Beckham Jr. now dealing with injuries. You've got Rashad Bateman, who's coming back from injury. And they got dealt a tough blow in week 1, losing J.K. Dobbins. And they've had to adjust on the fly. Jagger, I know that Dave's not the only one excited about this Ravens offense. You actually nominated these guys, Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson. I think that a lot of your love comes for Zay Flowers.
It does. Zay Flowers is my number 1 son, obviously. I've been on that hype train since
You've got a lot of
the
kids.
draft. Yeah, I got a lot of kids, man, and most of them are 2023 rookies. But I think Zay Flowers is an absolute stud, and you guys kind of alluded to that earlier, that we haven't seen what this offense can be. This is only the second game with Todd Monken, and I've already seen the things that I wanted to see for years now, where, we talked about J.K. Dobbins going down with injury. If this was the offense from last year, we would have saw a significant step back in what this production looks like, because it was so running back centric. Now, it's not that running backs aren't important or J.K. Dobbins wouldn't add anything, but now I feel like we have a much more balanced offense, and the runs are being mixed in. That's not something that we're going to see every play. We saw them spread the ball out, and then again, as Rashad Bateman and Odell Beckham Jr. come back and Mark Andrews comes back, that's only going to improve Zay Flowers, because he's not going to be seeing so much double coverage. A lot of people were talking about his A-dot in week 1. Well, I think he kind of proved that wrong when we see him making plays downfield in double coverage, even despite his size. This is a guy that can get open at all levels of the field. And then we have an MVP quarterback in Lamar Jackson, who looked like he fit in this offense. Did he still run the ball? Yes, but he was able to improvise. He was able to leave the pocket and then throw a dart over, like lofted over the side of the field for almost a touchdown. I mean, to me, this is what dreams are made of. You have a running quarterback who has a spread offense with tons of playmakers, and then we got a rookie who's already produced in 2 weeks, and we know how these receivers only kind of get better as the season goes along. So I'm all in. I've been all in.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement, and rightfully so, around this Baltimore Ravens offense. I will say this, and I'm sorry because I know it's my job here to be the resident wet blanket. A lot of that Zay Flowers production came in week 1 with Mark Andrews out, and then we kind of saw it come back down to earth. And then the Lamar Jackson stuff, Dave, I know that you were saying I need to go watch the film, go watch the game, and I do plan on doing that. Just looking strictly from a numbers perspective, there wasn't quite anything that stood out to me saying MVP type stuff. He still finished as the quarterback 9 in fantasy. And so I know that people are going to be watching this and saying, like, what an idiot. This guy hasn't watched the film. No, I haven't
Get
watched
your
the
head
film,
out of the
'cause
box score, nerd.
the all 22 takes a little time to show up on NFL Plus, but I will be watching that, and I that's why I think I'm tempering my expectations, my hype here for them. But I do get it. I understand that there is that ceiling for this Ravens offense and for Lamar Jackson, but that's a little bit of where my trepidation comes from. Is that even when they're looking good, it's still just okay.
So I think you'll see when you watch that game, like I said, the first half, they kind of came out the gate a little bit slow, but as the game progressed, we saw Todd Monken's offense, kind of what you and I had envisioned and talk about a lot this offseason, where receivers were just getting wide open at every level of the field. When receivers weren't open and weren't available, Lamar was, just finding rushing lanes to just take off with the ball at ease. I mean, it just looked like effortless football from Lamar Jackson. It's like everything just kind of clicked in the second half, and this offense looked unbelievable. So you'll see it. Get back to me. We can put our heads together tomorrow and talk a little bit about this game. But I was very, very happy with what I saw from the Ravens offense.
I really hope the comments just say, "Watch the film, nerd." All right, let's get back to this. We've got our final player that we're going to talk about that I'm really hyped about. This was my guy to draft all offseason. This was one of my football guys' favorites at the running back position. Tony Pollard for the Dallas Cowboys. Right now, he's the running back 5 on the season. I think that should only go up. We've just had a couple of kind of crazy performances from running backs here in the first couple of weeks. Kyren Williams is a running back too, guys. Like that's not gonna hold water. But what is looking excellent for Tony Pollard right now is the volume he's getting. 32 touches in week 2 alone. Talking about a guy who got 8 targets. I mean, everything just looks really, really good for him. I think that we're not sure what we were going to get. We expected volume, but I don't know, man, not like that. 32 touches in week 2. Dave, are we right to be hyped about Tony Pollard, or do you have any worries here about how much volume he actually is getting? It might break him down.
I'm not too concerned about it. I mean, he's not like a 225-pound guy, and I don't think you need to be that in today's NFL with the way that they get running backs outside, especially in this Dallas offense. I just want to thank you, Alfredo. Your edible arrangement is in the mail. I was fading Tony Pollard early in the offseason, and you talked me off the ledge and made me see the light. I was just really scared that they were going to end up bringing in, Zeke back or signing one of these free agent running backs, and they didn't. And around week 1 or 2 of the preseason is when I started to warm up to Tony Pollard a little bit, started to draft him, and I mean, he's looking like the steal of the draft if you were able to get him in the middle of the second round. Gave us 19.9 points in week 1, 22.2 points in week 2. That's kind of what we expect from Pollard going forward now. It's just like a 20 point per game type of output. So thank you, Alfredo. Sometimes you give me some good advice, and I'm glad that I took that one. I have Pollard on a lot of my teams that I drafted late in the offseason, all because of you.
Edible arrangement, hashtag not a sponsor. Probably should be a sponsor though, because if there's nothing that I love more, it's eating fruit off of a stick that in the shape of flowers. All right, Jagger, I want to ask you a little bit about Tony Pollard here. This is our last guy, and so I want to get you to finish us off here. Tony Pollard, he was being drafted initially as the running back 8. Now, rest of season rankings, I think there's a reasonable expectation for him to be running back 4. Like he's moved ahead of some of these guys. Like I would say ahead of Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Ramondre Stevenson, Saquon Barkley, potentially on how long this injury lasts, maybe even Austin Eckler as well. Do you think Tony Pollard can be a top 3 running back the rest of the season here?
Boy, does not like it sucks that I'm a running back fader because having running back seems really fun. Rest in peace to my Zach Charbonnet teams. Because like believe it or not,
Hey,
Tony
we
Pollard
got
was
Brian Robinson, man. We got Brian
yeah,
Robinson. We're good.
yeah, you win some, you lose some. But Tony Pollard was already my RB3. And I'm gonna do
Nice.
something gross that I hate to do, which is I'm gonna compliment Mike McCarthy because for one thing that
Oh,
we're seeing
gross.
that is yeah, I know it hurts to do this. But he's running this offense and it kind of looks competent. And then one thing that I think is complementing this team, and especially this is kind of like a TED talk on game script. This defense is great, and Mike McCarthy's old school. So once they get up, they are going to run the ball. They're going to run it. They're going to run it. They're going to run it. That's kind of the reason why Kellen Moore is over at the Chargers now, because Mike McCarthy was upset that they'd be up in games, and he's still trying to chunk the ball. Now, my CeeDee Lamb shares don't like that so much, but right now, I love the balance of this offense, and I don't. To me, the Cowboys could realistically, and I'm stealing this take from Chuck Bass, but I think they realistically could have a top 5 quarterback, a top 5 wide receiver, a top 5 running back, and a top 5 defense. So the Cowboys, this actually might be their year, and the Cowboys fans are right. You know, a broken clock is right twice.
Man, it's going to be a big year for Cowboys fans if all of those things come true. We're going to be back tomorrow with our trade episode. We're going to be talking about players that we think you should be selling high after a couple of good performances here. A big thank you. This is weird now because normally, Jagger, I thank you for all the production stuff you do behind the scenes, but I want to thank you for being on the show today. You were such an awesome guest, and you guys can all see Jagger on the Sunday morning live start sit show here on YouTube at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. I'll thank the rest of our production team, though. Thanks to Julia and Dylan. Dave, as always, you're an awesome co-host to have on here. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening all the way through. We'll see you next time. Adios.